Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Maisy Mok. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Hongkongers are free to bring back Japanese seafood for own consumption, but not for sale, as the Fukushima nuclear plant gets set to discharge wastewater. China and other developing allies signaled the need for cooperation to counter Western dominance in BRICS summit. And 6 youngsters in Pakistan had a day to forget after their journey to school goes awfully wrong. The government denied applying double standards in banning Japanese food imports when nuclear plants elsewhere in the world also discharge radioactive wastewater. Officials also clarify that travelers can still bring back Japanese delicacies to Hong Kong so long as they are for personal consumption. When the clock strikes midnight, Hong Kong will begin to turn away sea products from large parts of Japan. The ban applies to the 10 prefectures of Tokyo, Fukushima, Chiba, Tochigi, Ibaraki, Gunma, Miyagi, Niigata, Nagano, and Saitama. While other nuclear power plants, including those in China, regularly discharge radioactive water into the sea, the government insisted it was not a fair comparison.
The fundamental question is that the nuclear contaminated water that is to be discharged originated from the nuclear accident during 2011. So it had direct contact with the active fuel, and it contained large amounts of different types of radionuclides. So this is fundamentally different from the normal discharge by ordinary nuclear plants.
But officials stopped short of advising Hong Kongers against traveling to Japan, only warning of an increased risk of consuming contaminated food in those regions. Travelers can also bring back aquatic products to Hong Kong, provided they are for self-consumption or distributed as souvenirs. Anyone who attempts to sell these products face up to 12 months in jail.
喺食物方面咧，喺日本進口嘅食物佔我哋喺香港幾多咧？
Vivian Lau, Permanent Secretary for Environment and Ecology, says Japanese food currently makes up about 2% of all food items imported to Hong Kong, while 6.75% of aquatic imports come from the island nation. The Center for Food Safety has already stepped up inspections of Japanese food in recent months. More than 10,000 samples have been tested between mid-June and Sunday, equal to the number for the whole of last year. Radioactive water from Fukushima nuclear plant could be released into the sea tomorrow at noon, Hong Kong time. While the discharge is now a reality, the debate over the safety of the diluted water rages on, Raymond Yuan reports.
Final preparations are already underway at the stricken Fukushima nuclear power plant, where radioactive wastewater could be discharged as soon as 1 p.m. local time tomorrow. The facility, about 3 hours' drive northeast of Tokyo, is currently occupied by 1,000 of these giant tanks filled with purified wastewater. Each ton of radioactive water will be diluted with 1,200 tons of seawater before it is released into the Pacific Ocean. In the initial stage, Tokyo Electric Power Company is aiming to discharge 7,800 tons of wastewater over 17 consecutive days. While that makes up only 0.6% of the water accumulated at the plant, an expert says it is an essential first step.
They're running out of space on the site. So these tanks, if you look at a picture of the Fukushima site, you see that it's full of these wastewater tanks, and it's preventing them from getting on with what to me is the more important problem of decommissioning the damaged reactors at Fukushima themselves.
Smith added that Fukushima is far from the only nuclear plant in the world to discharge radioactive water into the sea. citing examples in China and South Korea. In response, Beijing has summoned Japan's ambassador to China, Hideo Terumi, to lodge a solemn protest. Terumi said Tokyo regretted China's unscientific claims, but remained committed to communicate. Ray Mingyang, HKIBC.
Back in Hong Kong, part of the exclusive Fanland golf course will turn into a pet park next month, as the government promised to make the site more accessible to the public. The lease for the 32-hectare-old course will end on August the 31st, allowing the government to resume ownership. A pet park and a walking trail will open to the public from 3 p.m. on September the 1st, as well as a nearby car park. But the arrangement will only last for 10 days. Sports Minister Kevin Yuen confirmed the site will be leased to the Hong Kong Golf Club again for 2 months, in preparation for an international tournament in October. For the second time in a month, China and the Philippines were engaged in a heated confrontation in the South China Sea. Footage filmed by journalists on board the Philippine vessels offered a rare glimpse of the episode near a disputed island. Sachin Khatvi reports.
The Philippine Coast Guard was escorting 2 supply ships making their way to a Navy vessel berthed near the Second Thomas Shoal when they ran into trouble. While located in the South China Sea, the shoal is only 200 kilometers away from the Philippine province of Palawan. As they approached the disputed territory, at least 4 Chinese Coast Guard vessels intercepted the fleet. The entire episode was witnessed by a select group of journalists invited on board the Philippine vessels. Suddenly, the Chinese warships blocked their access and instructed their Philippine counterparts to turn back, with still 7 kilometers to go. A tense standoff ensued in close proximity, and radio broadcasts were exchanged.
China has indisputable sovereignty over the Nansha Islands, including the Navy and its adjacent waters. In a spirit of humanism, we will only permit the entry of Philippine cargo ships to the illegally grounded vessels. Government vessels are not allowed to enter.
Philippine officers responded.
Conducting lawful routine maritime patrol within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. We are proceeding according to our planned route. Request to stay clear from our passage in accordance with the collision regulations. Over.
The supply ships eventually decided to go ahead without the Philippine Coast Guards. They delivered supplies and completed a rotation of crew at the military outpost, and all vessels left the scene peacefully. This marked the second time in a month that the 2 nations have been involved in a standoff in the territory. Earlier this month, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel used a water cannon to stop a Philippine supply boat from approaching the shore. Sachin Khatvi, HKIBC.
China says that hegemonism is not in its DNA and that it is determined to seek a more equitable international order. The speech came on the first day of the BRICS summit in South Africa, as the bloc looks set to accept new members and counter Western dominance. Azam Khan reports.
Apart from rolling out the red carpet for arguably his most important guest, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa even awarded President Xi Jinping the Order of South Africa, the country's highest honor. The ceremony came at the end of a meeting on the opening day of the BRICS summit in capital Pretoria. Ramaphosa said he was trying to get China on board Africa's plan to reform global governance, notably the United Nations Security Council. Africa and South America have no permanent representatives on the powerful panel, despite being home to nearly 2 billion people. Xi said China will support South Africa in taking up a bigger role in international affairs. The leaders of the 5 rising powers that make up the bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, then gave speeches at a business forum. Xi drew attention after he was absent from the event, with Commerce Minister Wang Wentao delivering the speech on his behalf. In a thinly veiled swipe at the United States, Wang said that hegemonism was not in China's DNA, and the emerging economies were only striving for a more equitable role in global governance. China also expressed its support on expanding the membership of BRICS, a key focus on the summit's agenda this year. Brazilian President Lula da Silva also gave the nod to bringing in more partners. Numerous nations like Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Argentina have submitted applications to join the group, which accounts for over 40% of the world's population and a quarter of the global economy. Azam Khan, HKIBC.
8 people, including 6 school children, were rescued in northwestern Pakistan after spending hours in a cable car which looked set to plunge into a ravine. Sachin Khatri reports.
6 children aged between 10 and 16 were visibly shaken following the hours-long ordeal. They were given prompt medical attention by doctors who remained on standby on the ground. It was just another ordinary day to school for the youngsters who relied on the gondola to cross a valley near the mountainous city of Battagram in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. 2 adults were also on board, but halfway through the 1.6-kilometer journey, one of the car's cables snapped, leaving the group dangling some 270 meters above ground. High winds made the situation worse. Locals quickly alerted authorities, with an army helicopter arriving hours later and plucking one of the students out of the cable car. But the rescue operation was halted as the sun began to set. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Eventually, army commandos set up zip lines and brought the 7 others to safety. The dramatic rescue gripped the entire nation, and everyone prayed for the safe return of those stranded. Makeshift cable cars are a common mode of transport in the hilly regions of northwest Pakistan, but most lack proper maintenance and are prone to breakdowns. Sachin Katwe, HKIBC.
Hong Kong stocks have risen for the second consecutive session as more companies announce positive interim results. The Hang Seng Index rose 0.3%, while the tech index advanced 0.2%. Capital continued pouring into Baidu, which jumped 4.4% after the tech giant reported a 15% jump in quarterly revenue. Short video platform Kuaishou was up 3% as it registered its first ever quarterly net profit of 1.48 billion yuan. But the rebound didn't expand to property stocks, with real estate firm Shimao Group diving over 20%. Analysts will now be closely watching a 4-day China tour by U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo this Sunday in Washington's latest effort to improve ties. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up by 54 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tracker Fund was up 9 cents, Enta Sports was up $7.55, while Kuaishou was up $1.90. Meituan was up $1.10, AIA was up $1.70. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euro is at 8.47. The British pound is at 9.89, and the Australian dollar is at 5 points. And in the UK market, the London FTSE is currently up 56 points. On to the weather now. Hot and humid tomorrow with isolated showers. Temperatures will range between 27 and 32 degrees. Similar outlook for the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Maisy Mok. Thanks for watching. Good night.